Yep. It's not going anywhere. You're fine. Just use it. All right. So we're going to talk about bonding today. Okay? Most of the stuff we're going to do today is pretty easy. It's not real hard to do, and it works well the day before Christmas, particularly the first part of class. Okay? Dot diagrams and bond types are the easiest. If we don't get to oxidation number, I can survive. But bond types and dot diagrams we got to get through today. Just because we don't have a lot of time before you're going to have to take the exam. So, what is a chemical bond? All right. Bonds occur when electrons are either lost, gained, or shared. Now, we have to figure out today which elements will lose and gain electrons and which elements will share electrons. And figuring that out is based on what type of elements they are. Okay? So as long as you can figure out whether they're metals or whether they're non-metals, we should be able to do that. Yep.
Is there ever any bonds where one bonds with two other things to get 8?
Yes, it does. But we would only do that I would only explain all of that in the chemistry curriculum. It's not something we will do in here. I won't go anywhere near that in depth. Okay, I don't have anything else on my board. I didn't think I did. Tell me when you have it, Janai, because I know you were sharpening.
Oh, are you ever going to get our hot grades back?
I can tell you what they are.
I want to know.
Just ask me later when you're working on the activity. Huh? I don't. Okay. All right, so there are 3 types of bonds. The first one is called ionic. And the second one is called covalent. And you don't have to leave space because we're going to do them separately on the next screen. Now, sometimes teachers will teach these in biology class. So students have some background knowledge with those two. And the one that most students have not talked about when they come to me is metallic. Okay? So ionic, covalent, and metallic are the 3 that we're going to talk about. All right? Ionic and covalent are the 2 that go with the activity we're going to do today. Metallic is pretty easy, although it creates the most issues. I don't know why. It just does. Now, we're going to break these apart and analyze each of them and talk about how to find out which one is which. Now, you also have to recognize the definition and what happens with their electrons. We're giving everybody enough time? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I'll come back to that. I don't know why I have it there. All right, so what is an ionic bond? All right, an ionic bond is a bond where electrons are, you can say, transferred or you can say lost or gained. Depends on the author of the definition or the text as to which one they like. They mean the same thing, so it doesn't matter which definition you use. Okay? It basically means I have it and I give it to someone else. Okay? I lost it, someone else gained it. I transferred it to John. Now, that's a really nice definition. Does anyone know how to find an ionic bond based on I have the electrons and I gave them to John? Or I'm sodium and I gave them to chlorine? No. So how are we going to be able to identify an ionic bond? Ionic bonds are any combination of a metal and a non-metal. Now, this is why I've been trying to get you to understand where metals are on the periodic table and where non-metals are on the periodic table. Because in a little while, I'm going to give you a sheet of elements, and you're going to have to cut them out and make 4 examples of ionic bonds. If you don't know where a metal is and where a non-metal is on the periodic table, can you do that? No. All right, so when you think about the periodic table, metals are where? Okay. Here's over here, metals. Metals are over here. Non-metals are where? They're over here on the right. So essentially, you need something from over here on the left with something over here on the right. Okay. Magnesium and what? Theoretically, yes. Okay, argon's a noble gas and has 8 electrons, so will it actually form a compound? Yes, magnesium and chlorine would be a much better example. Okay? Everybody there? Mm-hmm. All right, so what groups really like to form ionic bonds?
1 and 17.
Yes. All right. Group 1 and group 17 love to form ionic bonds because group 1 needs to do what with its electron? Lose one. And group 17 needs to gain 1. They form really stable compounds like table salt. Okay? If you remember our discussion from yesterday, I said group 1 compounds explode in water. Chlorine gas is in group 17. We can't breathe it before we drop dead. Okay? Really, really deadly. But together they make nice, safe compounds. What other 2 groups make nice, safe ionic compounds? Who?
2 and 6.
Yes. Okay? Group 2 and group 16 love to form ionic compounds.
13 and 15. No, it's 3 and 15.
Those start to get into covalent. We're going to talk about why. Okay, but those are the 2 that love to form ionic compounds. Now, group 1 will also form compounds with group 16. Okay, there's nothing wrong with group 1 and group 16 also. They do not have to be an exact swap of electrons. And again, that gets into chemistry, which we're not going into. Okay, but basically it has to be a metal and a non-metal. Now, questions about how to recognize ionic. Everybody with me? Yes? All right. Because in a minute when we do this, I don't want to hear, how am I supposed to make this ionic compound, Ms. Wall? I don't get it. All right. What's covalent? Covalent is a bond where electrons are shared. Okay, the electrons are shared. No losing and gaining, but they're shared. You okay over there? Now, we need to be able to recognize covalent bonds because you have no idea which elements on the periodic table share electrons. So, how are we going to be able to find who shares? All right?
Something to do with that.
Something to do with what?
No.
Nope. Okay. Any combination of non-metals. Okay? Now, for our purposes today, and when we're doing this, do not worry about the metalloids. Okay? If it's on the right of the staircase, it's a non-metal. Okay? If it's on the left, it's a metal. Do not worry yourself about the metalloids for this. Okay? Does that make sense? Left is a metal, right is a non-metal. We're not even going to concern ourselves with metalloids today. Now, what groups like to form covalent bonds? Anybody else? 16, 17 are great answers. All right. Where do I have nonmetals labeled? On the right of the staircase. 18 is out. Why is 18 out?
Because they don't
those do not react. Okay? Because they don't react, they're not going to form covalent bonds. Okay? They don't form compounds with anybody.
So you can't get them to react in all
They have gotten them to react in the lab with fluorine under great stress. But short of that, no, they do not form compounds naturally. Okay? So group 17 is good. Group 16 that y'all yelled at is good. What else? There's two more that I want. 15 and 14. All right? If y'all look at a periodic table, these are predominantly going to be on the right side of the staircase. Now, they might have a couple metalloids in them, but what did I tell you? For the purposes of this discussion, don't worry about if they're metalloids. If they're on the right of the staircase, treat them as non-metals. Yep, if they're on the right, just make them non-metals for today. All right, metallic bonding. All right, metallic bonding is the weirdest of the crowd. All right, this is a bond where the electrons are able to move. All right, we use a really fancy word here. These are called delocalized electrons. Essentially, the electrons are not attached to the atom. They're able to travel throughout the metal. So, if you stick a butter knife or a metal knife in that outlet, those electrons can travel through that knife to where? Into your hand. That's why metals conduct. The electrons in the copper wire are not attached to the atom in the copper. The electrons can travel throughout that copper wire. They're delocalized. So the electrons can flow through the copper wire to carry electricity through your house this Christmas season so that over the break you have heat, you have electricity to turn the lights on, you're able to cook whatever meals you want, and hopefully have a very pleasant experience for the next week and a half, okay? Without those electrons being able to move, would you be able to have electricity? No, okay? Now, what is the major difference between ionic and covalent bonds? And that should say and metallic bonds, okay? The major difference between ionic, covalent, let me get rid of that, and metallic bonds. I want it to be about the electrons. Okay? What can the electrons do in metals that they can't do in ionic and covalent? Move. Okay? Electrons move in metals. They are locked in place in a covalent or ionic bond. So, for example, table salt. Table salt's an ionic bond. Will table salt conduct electricity?
No.
No. Why will table salt not conduct electricity?
It's not metal.
It's not the reason. All right. Why did a metal conduct electricity? Why do metals conduct? If you were listening, I gave you the answer. Why do metals conduct electricity? So what? Which particles? That's right. The electrons move. Metals conduct because electrons move. If the electrons don't move, you cannot conduct electricity. Okay? It's that simple. You only conduct electricity if electrons move. For example, in the summertime, you guys go to the swimming pool. What's in the swimming pool that conducts electricity? That's the answer I get all the time. No. It's not the water that causes you to be electrocuted. Chlorine. The chlorine. All right? We dump chlorine in the swimming pool by the bucketfuls. Cups and cups and cups of it every day to keep what? Germs down. Okay? They check the pH level, they check the chlorine level to make sure it's all balanced so we don't wind up with some skin rash or wind up with some weird disease because some kid peed or pooped in the pool. Okay? Now, because of that, all of these ions dissolve in the water. Those are moving electrons. Moving electrons carry what? Electricity. So if somebody throws something that's plugged into an electrical current into the swimming pool, what happens?
Everybody gets electrocuted.
Everybody gets electrocuted. So if a lightning storm comes up and there's chlorine in the water, all those moving electrons can do what to y'all?
Man, you got to slow down the pool.
You got to get out of the pool because you can be electrocuted if something strikes.
Why don't you get out of the lake when it starts electrocuting? Does that include it?
It does not, but there are other things that are in lake water, okay? Now, all water has ions in it. For example, this water has chlorine in it because we still don't want to be poisoned with God knows what's in the water. Is it the same level of chlorine as a swimming pool?
No.
No. State of North Carolina puts what in the water for our teeth? Fluoride. Okay, not all states put fluoride in the water, but state of North Carolina does. Most water has copper ions in it because we do have some copper pipes around. Hopefully none of you have homes that are old enough that you have lead pipes anymore, particularly given that lead is toxic and will cause the brain cells to die. Okay?
Well, you might have electrics.
Hopefully no one has that. Okay? We'll lower your IQ also. Now,
I don't have a low IQ.
So, no, you don't. So, there are all kinds of ions in water. Not only that, water does something called autoprotalysis and self-ionizes. But beside all of that, all right, water itself is a poor conductor. All right, I know most people don't believe that, but water itself is a poor conductor. So when you go to the swimming pool, all those other things get dumped in the water, which makes water an excellent conductor, which is why you have to get out of the water. So lake water is not as good a conductor, but you still should get out of the water because it will conduct. Okay? But swimming pools are fabulous conductors. Anybody remember probably 5 years ago there was a young lady electrocuted in the Brookside pool? Okay? Why?
It's got a lot.
A lot of chlorine in the water. Okay? 3 children were in the pool at the same time, only 1 died. 3 could actually feel the electricity running through the water. 2 got out on concrete. Concrete is not a conductor. The child who died grabbed the what?
Oh.
Grabbed the
Oh, I
metal pole.
remember that now.
Okay? Metal pole is a conductor. Okay? All of that electricity that was flowing through that water and through that metal pole was a conductor, and they were electrocuted. Okay? The reason they were electrocuted is those electrons are moving. Table salt is a solid. It's an ionic compound. Are the electrons moving?
No.
No, it cannot conduct. Okay? Now, isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, like you would have at home in the bathroom, medicine cabinet, or under the sink, is a covalent compound. Are the electrons moving there?
No,
No. Will it conduct?
no.
No. If you had a swimming pool full of it, could we swim in it in a lightning storm?
Yeah.
No moving electrons. You would not be electrocuted in the summer storm.
And that's
Good.
Okay? Now,
you better hook somebody with all match in there.
well, that's a whole different issue. Now, how do we recognize a metallic bond? For our purposes in this class, it will be a single metal. They are not going to ask you about combinations of metals. You're in physical science, okay? Now, if they say something like sterling silver, I would hope you would recognize that sterling silver is silver, okay? It's an alloy. It's a combination of metals. They're not going to ask you about what sterling silver is made of, all right? But it is a combination of metals. It's an alloy. Most of you would probably recognize brass, bronze. They're combinations of metals, but they're not going to ask you what it's made of. But for us, it will be a single metal. Like they're going to say aluminum. They're going to say iron. They're going to give you a single metal that's found on the periodic table. You will be able to look that up and go, oh, is it up there? And yet go, yes, that's the metal. Okay? You're not going to be expected to know that otherwise. Questions? Okay, we're going to do a little practice before we cut up stuff and waste my supplies. All right, does everybody have what we need? All right, so I'm going to give you a minute to, you don't have to draw in the lines. I just have the lines drawn in so when we write the answers on the board, you can keep up. All right, so we're going to take these and we're going to figure out the bond types and how we know. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to write it down. And then we'll do the first one together. And then I'll give you about 10 minutes to do it. And then we're going to go over it together. You going to do this? Or you just going to sit there like this all day? None of us want to be here. We're coming up on 10 minutes and we should be out of here for the day. But thanks to our week-long snow break, we got to stay to breathe our
I would rather have this half day than a whole week.
Huh?
I'd rather have this half day than a whole week.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I sort of feel that way myself, but
Same.
that's not what the weather wanted.
Because we could have more education for these exams, and also we would be in fourth period right now for some moments. It's your vacation. Oh, it's solid, right there. Just stop.
I don't care about this.
Too bad. That's that for everybody. Keep going. I gave you one this.
So if we look at the first one, what can you tell me about CSF? What do you know about it?
CS is a metal and it's yeah. I mean not gas, but non-metal.
Okay. Now, for those of you who don't have a periodic table, all right, you gotta have one. All right. William has one on his desk, which makes it much easier. Now, he may know it off the top of his head. All right. Most of you probably do not know where the elements are off the top of your head. Okay.
You're smart. Man.
So if you look up CS is number 55, I think. All right. So if you look up CS, which is number 55, all right, it's what side of the periodic table? It's on the left. It's a metal. Okay. So CS is a metal, and F is over there at number 9. So it's what? It's a non-metal. So if one is a metal and one's a non-metal, what did we say today? We said it would be ionic. Okay? See how we did that?
What's that compound name?
It's called cesium fluoride. All right? But if you remember, right here where we said metal and non-metal, metal and non-metal is ionic. Okay? Now, I want you to do the remaining compounds. And I'm going to ask, what do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people to come up here and give us the answers. Okay? So see if you can figure out those 6. And after we've done it, we're going to do our activity. Cut and paste.
I think you said we weren't doing 3 compounds.
So what?
I think you said we weren't doing 3 compounds.
Remember, it's just got to, well, I'm not going to ask you to do anything weird with it. You just got to look up the types of elements. So this one? Yeah. So that's what we got. Debbie, she's not here? Yes!
It's like, shouldn't you be across the street?
Don't rush her to come back. Don't.
What?
What about 4 minutes? It's just absent. It's all good. I get excited. Yes. Correct. It's just one that I always say.
Oh, good. That's rude, but saying at the same time.
You got a really low average, you don't participate, you just talk all the time. I don't say.
You have your airplane on?
Why are you in my
I have
conversation?
an airplane. I was saying you're slowly behaving.
No, you just look at the elements. So next one's what? C. Look at carbon. Yeah, you got C separate. You don't worry about the numbers. Numbers don't matter. Yeah, you don't got to stand up. You look up C, what kind of element is it? No. So you look up C, what kind of element is it? Yeah, it's a metal or non-metal. So like, it's a non-metal. And then O, what kind of element is it? Non-metal. What kind of element is O?
Yeah, that's the A right there.
So you got 2 non-metals. So what kind of On this one, you got two numbers. All right, so that was one down.
It is.
I just had it, I don't know.
I think it's like C.
Oh, no, actually, how do you spell the Bailey?
We spelled it.
COVALENT.
There you go, listen.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Now remember, we're not using the numbers at the bottom, we're only looking up the elements. Numbers aren't irrelevant. All right, the next, look up the letters. Numbers are loud.
Anthony Horn and DeAndre Williams, please report to the front office with your things.
Guess some of us are still getting early this season. NA, S, and O. All right, how are y'all up there? Keeping the thing straight? You look up NA, you look up S, you look up O. We just look up all three of them.
Right, told you that they see numbers.
Now read it. You're not participating in that. You're here, participating, let the day go faster. S is here, O is here. We choose that one. You look at NAS. You just got three. Okay. John, you finish? Top. Who's rolling? You okay, Roy? Touch the mouse, because it's gonna go to sleep probably before I get back up there. You okay, Chris? Okay. Roll. You sure? Julie's following.
So hydrogen still gonna be, hydrogen's be non-metal, but it's gonna be metal.
Can you get some what? Yes.
No, let me get some more. Hey, give me some more. Thank you, you got your bottle?
Huh? They're a big letter, so they're two separate elements. When you guys look at NA, S, and O, are S and O big letters or one big and one small? They're too big. So there are three separate elements. You look all three of them up separately. Separate, because they're all big letters. Every capital is a separate letter.
But MN is a metal, so this is a non-metal. This is non-metals and this is just metals and non-metals. So if it's just a metal, then they got what?
So do what? Yep.
So. So when this is just. Right, it's metallic. Okay. What MN do you tell?
I did not think about it. And then you know.
You so
Monica,
still
they
know.
didn't tell them.
Yeah, they up the whole time and don't even know what they're doing, bro.
You got it. Non.
That's how you know.
They call me.
Yep. Come on. What is it if you got? NA is.
I was looking, yeah, I'm talking to those.
So what would it be in the way of
That's all. Just do it.
that?
Oh, it's in that.
Yes. Okay, so what would it be? You got one metal and two non-metals.
Ion.
Yes.
Oh, this is gonna be all.
VA is there. Okay, so what you got? So what you got?
Wake up, know everything.
What What is it? You already know how to say what kind of-
Whatever.
What do you mean?
Is not, go out in the house. Yeah. How you doing, Alexis? Good, you ain't got nothing written down, you on your fingers. What's wrong with you, Dad?
Yeah, my trick no more.
Come on, we just gotta push through and grow it.
7, 8. I can't even do one. It's struggling.
Well, it works.
I'll do these separately.
Yep, correct. If it's a big letter, you do it separately. What you got? Ain't got nothing, it's blank. Okay. And CL. So.
I was like, so what else is moving? Well, no, I was like, because last night, that's when it happened. I was on that. And I was on, what, who was it?
Bro, you wanna do CL2 for me?
He was my body bag.
I mean, you can.
Oh, no, that's what I was trying to figure out.
I do it all in the day.
Which one? We know Marvin Knox.
Yes, sorry.
No, because it's like, I try to like cut the phones to go home and so I did it. Like I try to like do it all at once. It doesn't work. I'm trying to figure it out. Actually, popped up now, screenshot it.
I bet you just. The numbers.
It's okay.
He's just trying to trick.
Right out to the side there where the answer is. Alright, for his oxygen, he has no. For non-metal, he wrote a little too large. Alright, but he's covalent because they're both non-metals. Alright, we okay there? Alright, voted.
She'll let me do it.
No.
Y'all do it and see if we get it right. Attempt.
Oh, last time I checked, I'm smarter than you.
Trying to get a
I doubt
haircut over
it.
Christmas.
I'm not getting a haircut.
Right. Bob did though.
Yeah, you could use one too. His is just downright pushy.
I'm not getting my haircut. I've done, no. Wait, yeah.
Alright, how about BACL2?
William.
About charisma, you feel like it?
Yeah.
You don't.
She said, yeah.
Look like. I don't know.
We look like it's fixed. You know,
Don't reject it. He's dirty. He's dirty.
Why would you be going to jacket?
Over some, no stuff alone.
he didn't fight, and he's gonna go to jacket. That makes me mad.
Oh, Tyrese.
He's arrested.
Yeah, they.
I know. This,
You got.
that's your name? I thought it was Ionic. Oh.
Like that, though, the Aries.
It's okay.
My bad. I just
I
agreed with
said
you.
that's-
That's what happened Wednesday. That's what he said, Wednesday, but Thursday, and then they were fighting in the gym.
Alright, so charisma's used. Easy on that thing, that's a computer pen. VA is metal and CL is a non-metal. Alright, PCL3. How about Nathaniel? You feel up to that one? How about Ana Lucia? How about you not work with that chatty Brown group in the back that does nothing on the assignment? And you pick a different group to work with.
No, one,
Yes. And Lucia, why are you erasing that?
Yes.
Put that back where you had it. Yeah, non-metal. Chlorine is a what? Look at that periodic table again. What's chlorine? Number 17.
It's like you don't want it. I find
It's a metal? Yeah, it's a non-metal. This is on the right. So if they're both non-metals, what does that make the bond? Yes. All right, how about Virginia for HCl? You're done.
I'll give you the cake. I'll give the cake. I'll give the cake. I will be running around the cake.
Oh, what am I doing?
I'm gonna be running backwards.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you why in a second here. Now, this one is often mistaken for ionic, all right? Because of hydrogen. Hydrogen is a what? It's a gas. It's a non-metal. And a lot of times people look up at the periodic table and they go, it's on the left, and they say hydrogen is a what? It's a metal. But hydrogen is a non-metal. So those two are both non-metals. So HCl is covalent. Okay? All right, MEN. No, I'm not going to let you do it. You might as well.
Can I do it?
Why do you let me do it?
Just go.
You have already done one,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
I was nice to let you do one to
I
start.
haven't done one.
Go ahead before it kills you.
No.
Hey,
You're
why
only
can't I
smart.
do it?
You're actually smart.
I know what.
You volunteer answers all the time. Now sit down and be quiet. Everybody in here knows you know the answer, so sit down and be quiet.
I didn't know that.
Metallica 2 as one.
Huh?
Metallica 2 as one.
Well, you actually just write metal there, and then you write metallic under the type of box.
What's metal? So it got 2 as one.
Yes.
I was like,
Ew.
There you check off an L. That will only
Where?
have one. You gotta use the pen. All right, you good?
Oh, I forgot you were recording the class. I turned around ugly.
They told everybody to turn around.
They can
They can hear you too.
I be saying some dumb stuff. They be hearing everything. I'm not gonna watch the video.
All right. Now. Talk about one thing. This should take us about 15 to 20 minutes, tops.
Y'all be shut up.
I don't care.
So metallic bonds are not even bonds. They're just like metal.
Well, it's like aluminum foil. When you pull out a strip, is it one aluminum atom? No, it's millions of aluminum atoms all bonded together. It's just not a bunch of different atoms, it's all one type of atom all bonded together. Now, if you have like brass or sterling and silver, then it's different types of atoms all bonded together.
What is that called? Silver metal?
It's called an alloy,
Alloy.
which is a mixture of metals.
What are they doing?
They're making a sound wall. And beyond that, I think they're doing something with grading that hill down to go with the expansion of the acceleration lane out there.
Good one, so.
And I guess if Caleb does participate, he can come get a paper. All right. You have 16 elements on the sheet of paper. You're going to take a piece of orange paper, you're going to divide it in half, and essentially make two sides. Right? Now, once you've done that, all right.
So one side is gonna be for ionics, the other one
Yep.
for metals, okay.
Correct. On one side, right ionic. One side, right covalent. I need 4 examples that are ionic and 4 examples that are covalent. There are many combinations that you can make for ionic and covalent. So if you're working at a counter with 2 or 3 different people, I should not get 4 identical papers coming into me from your countertop. Now, my group that sat at the back last time and didn't finish the periodic table out, don't work together. Y'all suck as a group back there working together. You talk and you don't finish your work, okay? So don't work
Yes,
together,
that,
okay? Was that clear enough of that?
yeah.
Work,
Yeah.
work with other people,
No,
okay?
my side.
The rest of you do pretty well. Look at the clock. You need to be done no later than 1:05. No later than. That's cleaned up also.
I can handle your work, buddy. You got a bureau.
Stop texting Nadia.
You gonna beat you up, right?
Me and Nadia.
What?
Married.
Where you read it?
We read it. Where is it?
Y'all can spread yourselves out around the room.
It's a one group. Uh-huh.
The only group I said not to work together was that group in the back.
Yeah.
Hernandez work somewhere else. I don't care where, but not right
Working
there.
by myself.
Yeah, I've been talking to you about your class again. All right, I get excited about that. That's really what I'm believing. Find out who knows absolutely not, I was excited. I won't even say who, but I was excited.
Yeah. So bad. I was really man, I was yesterday. I didn't look at my nails. Hey, okay, you should have been doing
I was excited to find out somebody is,
how you feel? Yeah. I'm gonna try the one that's by the one by not this
which is fine.
So, you know, you see it up here.
Jason's going in. Let's get before you just type on it. The principal's chasing myself. That's why I was in the packet. What? Four. You better have your assignment turned in today. You didn't do the last couple minutes.
I fell asleep the whole time during that time.
Nathaniel, you gonna have your work done today. How do you know?
It's weird.
But then that's what we like. You doing?
So we can like use them again. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you should use all of the individual pieces.
Oh, maybe we're over here. And we ain't shit. I ain't got a drink. There's two different oats. Yeah, my good that's right. We can just glue it on, right? We don't got to put it up on the side of it. Oh, wait. Hey, so which don't have to do like 4 and 1. I want to use 2 and 1.
So what now?
2 for 1 example.
Yeah, you only want to use two per example. Otherwise you'll run out.
Yeah, I read that. I'm we are making.
You need a new paper?
No, I got it.
Okay, I was gonna say, because, I'll have lots of people before the period you don't do it.
No, I got it. You gotta be doing this in your phone.
Bro, like, I've never done something that over. No, I've actually like got into it. Like I was sitting, right, I was just sitting here watching. And I realized that's my egg. I only know one person doing that.
I could go on that.
Me and Naya is girlfriend. I love Naya. It's independent, like everybody. But it's allowed.
Right now?
We don't care. But we always do like this.
Why you got old twice?
Yes, the renovation, say more now. You shut up.
Yes. So it's time for this.
Yeah, but I'll mark
Other birds try to say. My sister had
All he's doing was spraying like, yeah, like. All he went to was spraying. They got he's fine. That's all he's fine. Yeah, keep. Just how
you talk to me. Y'all be lying, y'all. Y'all got a boyfriend. Y'all really trying to get low key. Y'all want to know what the best
Yeah, all the way around. He doesn't. Did you see?
I know.
He said just like him. He said just like, you just say it's like him.
Kevin, is he sick? Well, I don't know how to do it. This is why.
Kevin's right now.
Can we use, silicone?
So left, make it a metal, it's on the right, make it a non-metal.
We're not making metallics, are we?
Huh?
We're not making metallics.
No, when you say,
No, this I mean, is that so at least the mom is white too? So we want to use.
So the ones that are the same? They're all. I only need one.
you just lean it over. This area. Oh, you got your photo.
No, like.
Why did you give me this? And still after yeah. I did.
Like, I ain't trying to get like, yes, everybody know that. $3. $3. Praise the good. Where I put it?
Right here. There.
She was right. She's down to the today. You usually send me. Same time. And I just got.
Hey, you don't wanna play, so you don't wanna play. It's not playing.
Go girl. It's summer. So you got my grades for the bank?
They have better.
Y'all watch language in the
I
back.
was adopted. So I went and-
And then a couple times. I love my food. Right. That's not active. Look at yeah, actually walking.
How we coming?
Good.
105.
I know.
I need papers to be moving my direction.
What's the Rico day? You got me a what? Help me to that messed up. But she don't want to go down. But she didn't want to. Here. The photo, hang it on.
Hold on, ever, whatever.
It's at the bottom. You look at my left brush. Okay, that's good.
I can tell.
Boy, that's good.
What is Christmas Eve?
Listen.
Yeah, mine's 12.
I got you right here.
Yeah, put it in my room or
Hey, give me
something.
a call.
Alright. When will we go this? I will. My wife's supposed to be here. You gotta have that pepper strap.
After what? After what?
Yes,
5
girl.
times?
You did your edges too. Girl, bye.
I borrow one of the ATVs.
Why couldn't you make 2 columns like I told you?
What? Oh.
No, genius, those were the directions. Everybody else followed the directions. So that it's much easier for me to, for example, if I open this up. See how much easier that is to grade? Instead of me having to walk around and figure out where yours are. Please tell me Jacob and Charisma did it the right way.
I haven't done it yet.
I need papers on my desk. They were due
Tell them.
5 minutes ago.
Preach it. Preach the word.
So those of you who are going, I haven't done it yet, aren't getting a chance. Y'all need to be cleaning up. Oh, okay.
You got it hard since you
Y'all need to be cleaning up. Promising work. Very good. It's better today. William, stop that.
And then everything.
He said, oh, so this is that time.
She looking for me to stand like, girl, you already knew it. That's my I don't know why you started and then you do it every day. Oh, yeah, I'm sweating.
All right, I need people cleaning up. All my folks who are not done. Jacob, Charisma, y'all clean up back there. Raul, clean up your mess.
That's the right. Why you open your paper like that?
I can grade it. I can't grade it closed.
Let's make it work.
Any other papers? Last call. All supplies should be put away. All glue, all scissors.
I know somewhere.
You should come out and support the baseball team this year.
Are y'all gonna win something?
Yeah.
We got better. We got better.
Because last year we had a bunch of seniors that didn't care, so that's wonderful. You can even ask Roy.
Oh, is Roy playing baseball too?
Yeah.
I might be playing, Jacob might be playing.
I am playing.
I am.
Alright.
We won one last year.
No. Alright, so we're gonna finish with dot diagrams. Dot diagrams are the easiest things we do all year long.
The only school that will beat us for sure is
Come on, dude, let's finish. We're good. Let's go. Alright, so the last thing we're gonna do today, Caleb, sit down. The last thing we're going to do today is dot diagrams. They're the easiest thing we do all year long. Okay? You thought what was the easiest thing? You thought what was the easiest? No, these are easier. You already know how to do these. That's why I think they're the easiest. Okay? Now, dot diagrams. You got a paper? Get some paper this holiday.
Yeah, I need.
All right. The symbols represent the nucleus and inner shell electrons. Okay? They represent the nucleus and inner shell electrons. The dots represent the outer shell electrons. Now, the reason I said dot diagrams are the easiest thing to draw is what do we already know how to find? You should already know how to find the outer shell electrons. Now, the vast majority of us, I think, do know how to find outer shell electrons. Now, there's probably one or two of you in here who are still telling me, I don't know how to find the outer shell electrons, but that's because you're not doing anything. But the vast majority of us do know how to do it. Okay? So, drawing a dot symbol should be pretty easy. So, what do we have to do to draw the dot symbol?
Draw it out.
We write the symbol, which is pretty simple, right? And we draw dots to equal the outer shell electrons. So if there's one outer shell electron, we draw how many dots? One. If there's three outer shell electrons, we draw how many dots? Three. It really is that easy.
Wow, that's easy. That's easy, like really easy.
Okay? Now, the only thing about drawing the dots is I want you to envision, okay? I want you to envision a square, okay? We don't draw the square. I want you to imagine the square, okay? The most dots we put on a side is how many? 2. Okay? Now, the most outer shell electrons we have is 8. Okay? So, the most you would have on any side would be how many? 2 for a grand total of the 8. So, sometimes when people draw this, they draw them almost like in a circle, and they'll draw like 20-some electrons. Because they just think, oh, the atomic number is 20, so I just draw 20 electrons. But the outer shell electrons can only have how many? 8. So can I have 20 electrons for a dot diagram? Because you can only have how many outer shell electrons? 8. So you can never exceed that number. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Does everybody have what they need? We're going to practice a couple and then we're done. Just tell me when you got it, Alexis. Okay, so if we just practice like 2 or 3, just real quick. Sodium is in what group up there on the periodic table? Just what group? Okay, you can tell me it's in group 1, right? So how many electrons does it have?
1. So what do you mean 1 shell?
So we draw how many dots around it?
1. Wow.
That's it.
That's easy.
So you literally just put the symbol and then put it in many of like, okay, that's just 2.
So we do one more.
There's gotta be something.
Chlorine has what group?
7.
Group number who?
17.
17.
That's 7.
So 7 electrons.
So 2, 2.
So 2,
2.
2,
2,
2,
1.
7. The one there makes 7. That's it. There's no trick to it.
Okay.
Okay? I'm sure.
I feel like there is.
There isn't.
Okay.
Okay? That's why I said dot diagrams are the easiest thing we do. Okay? Now, you have no homework, obviously. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I hope you have a wonderful break. Stay out of trouble. Do not have any accidents. If you have a calculator, put it in the tub because there's one that is out and about. Looks like it's in front of Roy. Okay? Pick up your stuff. That's really positive, Logan.